Boundless Authenticity Podcast.
Thanks for tuning in to the Boundless Authenticity Podcast. Now think about this. Everywhere you go, you're surrounded by invisible forces, Wi-Fi routers, cell towers, Bluetooth earbuds, smart meters, and, what if you're starting to wonder whether these everyday electromagnetic fields are quietly making you sick? So for many people, a cluster of vague but very real symptoms has become hard to ignore. People get pounding headaches, they feel fatigue, strange tingling, burning on the skin. Some report heart palpitations. Some are talking about dizziness. Some are saying that they are having nights of broken and overall just bad sleep that no amount of coffee can fix. There are others that report brain fog and trouble focusing and memory glitches and mood swings, anxiety, depression, irritability. And it seems to flare up when they're sleeping near their phones, or they're under a big set of fluorescent lights, or they're sitting next to their Wi-Fi router, or in the office. There are many different reports. Some listeners may recognize themselves in these stories and may have heard the term electromagnetic hypersensitivity or EMF toxicity. And that's usually used to explain why they feel worse in high-tech environments, and maybe some are not affected. You will have to tell us in the comments section. But let's say you are suffering. What do? You're getting tests, they're coming back as normal. You're caught between fear of your environment and fear of being dismissed as crazy. You're imagining it. There's all this stuff on the internet. There's so much misinformation and fear-mongering on the internet. The question, is there a grounded, science-informed way to protect your health, calm your nervous system, and adapt your lifestyle without spiraling into paranoia and late-night conspiracy theory binges? Is there a grounded, science-informed way to protect your health that doesn't require ignoring your intuition and your obvious symptoms that need attention? Well, tonight's guest is going to solve that problem for us. Todd Shipman is a leading educator on the Lila Quantum Tech team, specializing in the frontier where quantum science, consciousness, and human potential intersect. He basically is working with the translation of invisible energetic forces and creating these practical tools and insights and products that can not only help you understand how subtle feels shape your intuition, your emotions, and everything in between, but also create practical solutions that will help you get past these challenges. So, without any further ado, I am going to jump into it with Todd. But first, I also want to say that you can check out leelaq.com. That's LEELAQ.com. Upgrade your energy, harmonize your EMF exposure, and elevate your wellness. With Lila Quantum Tech's science-backed quantum technology, you can get 10% off at leelaq.com when you use the code BOUNDLESS at the checkout. So for any listeners that suspect that they might be EMF sensitive, just in case you didn't catch that, you better turn the volume up. Todd, what's going on?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's going great.
Awesome. So we had a little pre-podcast chat, and my brain is still processing because there is so much that we could talk about. However, I want to laser focus on the problem. Explain to us what EMF sensitive really is, how you got into that concept, and how your products solve that issue.
Yeah, so I actually got into this quite some time before I became involved with Lila Quantum, which is one reason. I got into this for a few reasons. One, I got into the health and wellness world and trying to figure out just, what are the things that are holding us down if we're sick? What are the better things we can do? And that's a really umbrella answer, I guess, there. But I lived in a town called Fairfax, California. It's in Marin County. And I really got involved in understanding this stuff back when we are, and I don't know if this stands true, but it stood true a few years ago, that Fairfax is the only town in the country, if not the whole world, that banned smart meters. So the PG&E smart meters, the little meters that send out Bluetooth every time from your home to the power company. We are the only town successfully could do that. And we were one of the first towns to ban 5G. And this really got me involved on a community level of education and being able to explain this stuff again so that my 13-year-old twin daughters could understand it, my 74-year-old mom can understand it, and just people in the community. Because there's a lot of data, there's a lot of science, but I feel like just with a lot of stuff in the alternative health, it's almost meant to overwhelm you. And then you're kind of stuck in a paralysis of like, okay, well, here's the data. What does it mean? So my passion is taking this cool data and then regurgitating it so that the community can understand the dangers or the concerns. Because I'm also not into fear mongering. I'm into explaining, allowing people to understand and know so they can make those informed decisions themselves. And so there's a lot of town meetings, a lot of different things going on for us to be able to, educate people and understand like, this is why you want to be concerned. And this is why it's not just woo-woo science or conspiracy and stuff. So that's how I kind of jumped into this. That was in like 2015 is when I really got involved. So what are EMFs? Electromagnetic fields or frequencies. And now I also want to say that what we're mainly talking about are what we call NN EMFs, so non-native EMFs, because I want to be clear, like the earth itself puts off its own EMF field. And the other end of that is one reason we can do well barefoot, right? Like it's its own natural occurrence. And us as humans, evolutionarily wise, we've gotten used to that and it's not harmful at that level. But it's a non-native. It's the same thing as the sun, right? The sun is natural light. Now, us spending all day under fluorescent lighting is damaging. So we can kind of compare it to that if you want to talk about what type of EMFs we're talking about. So EMFs we're talking about come from Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, most commonly known, cell towers, cell phones, any kind of electronic, a lot of appliances emit EMFs, and they're silent. You don't really see them, of course. Some people are super sensitive. My opinion to that is our mitochondria is so resilient. And if we have a few problems, like our bodies can hold down the symptoms, right? So if we have Lyme disease or some autoimmune disease, our body can usually do really well if it's just one thing. Now it means it's exerting all this energy, so it's going to take away your energy yourself, but it's going to suppress those symptoms pretty well. But let's say we have Lyme disease and I moved into a moldy apartment or a moldy home. And then there's a little more weight on the body, right? So now my mitochondria is like, I got to use 30% to help with the Lyme, 30% to suppress the mold. Okay. And that takes away bad sleep, or, it creates bad sleep, takes away from the energy that you should feel good. And now let's say we we have a cell tower on top of us. Now that's another thing that's factoring us. And then that's when I think you're going to really feel it. And I think people that are EMF sensitive have a lot of other things going on. And that's the straw that broke the camel's back type of thing, So that's not with everyone. I am not EMF sensitive. I used to be. And that's my experience. I'm not saying that just because you're EMF sensitive means you have all these other problems. But for me, I could walk into a room and I could literally close my eyes and tell you where the Wi-Fi routers were or the Bluetooth speakers, because it was so effective. I couldn't walk into an elevator because the weight coming down, the EMFs of it would get me. So I used to be at that level. I did a lot of cleansing, physical detoxing, got rid of a lot of issues, and I'm not as sensitive anymore. So some people can go everywhere and never feel it. And that's I'd say more normal. But just because you don't feel it does not by any means mean they're not affecting you. Because again, our mitochondria is very, very resilient and it can suppress the heck out of symptoms in a good way. But then there are sacrifices. And so if our mitochondria is having to put all this energy into protecting us from the EMFs of the symptoms, then at the same time, it's taking away from digestion, focus, day-to-day stuff. And that's where, the concern comes in. But we can show all the time on a biological level that if you are exposed yourselves to these EMFs, what it does to our body. So what does it do to our body? There's numerous ways to look at this, but one thing that we can see, again, with test levels, these are double-blind, placebo-controlled studies that you can see. For example, like with live blood analysis, dark field microscopy, right? So we can show that we could do a blood test on you right now. It's live blood analysis. Show that you're let's put no EMFs in the room, and what your blood cells are going to look like. They're flowing. It's great. The blood is visceral and everything. And then we put a Wi-Fi router right next to you. What's going to happen is it creates inflammation in the body because it's a stress. It's a silent screaming device, basically, if you think about it, right? So even though we don't feel it, our blood will react immediately and become sticky. They call it like money rolls. So you can see it on the test where the blood gets sticky and clots. Now, not clotting like you're going to die, clot, but it gets clotty and sticky, and that's not good. That slows down healing. That slows down a lot of things. So that's one thing. We can look at your calcium channels, and we can show that when they are exposed to EMFs, they just kind of go nuts and confused, and they become overactive. We can show your heart rate variability, HRV, plummets when you're around EMFs. And of course, you want it to be high. Most people, if you don't know what HRVs are, you can look at like your Oura ring and your readiness score. That tends to be really, it's just a mirror of what your HRV readings are. You can also look on your Apple Watch and stuff. So those are things that you can't trick. A placebo doesn't do that stuff anyways. You can't like just make your blood sticky, or you can't lower your HRV off of that unless you're just internally stressed. We can look at brain wavelengths. We saw many studies. So we have like gamma and beta increase when you are around EMFs. Gamma and beta are kind of the brain wavelengths that are pretty much in relationship to like anxiety, depression, just negative thoughts. So when you have an anxiety attack, your beta wavelengths are just going to be as high as they can be. Same thing with the theta. You want to be like in an alpha, delta, theta. Those are ideal, but alpha is where is like the end goal to be. And so we see the EMF suppress alpha brain wavelengths too. So these are things that, again, you may not feel it, but we can show this is pretty much 100% of the population are at some point negatively affected. Doesn't mean it's ruining your day. Doesn't mean that it's doing things. But if you have other issues going on, this is just something else to throw onto the plate of what your mitochondria has to protect you from. So I know that's kind of a long answer, but hopefully I got a good enough answer of like what are EMFs and why we're concerned about them.
Okay, yeah, well, that all makes sense to me, and it's very logical. I mean, in 2020, they put a huge 5G tower here in my neighborhood, and you could feel it. You could feel that there was a change. And the way I would describe it is like there's a thickness to the air now that wasn't there before. And it didn't all start all at once. Like you didn't turn it on and then all of a sudden it was there. After a little while, you began to notice that there was a difference. And sometimes people talk about they feel a little bit like nauseous out of nowhere and things like that. I'm like, okay, well, are you sleeping next to your cell phone? What are you doing? Do you have a smart meter that's like 10 feet away from you when you're sleeping, or working or whatever the case is? And most of us do. Most of us now have these smart meters and that tower is right there and it's pretty close. So our neighborhood is small. It's small country, small distance. And so it's just interesting how if you are actually looking for it and you know what to look for, it's there. So what would you say to someone that they're like, okay, well, I have no idea what I should do next,
Let me step back real fast because I just want to touch on, like, you're talking about the nausea. I mean, because that's something I could have brought up. It just wasn't really my first thing to think about. But like, why are you getting nausea? Why are you having anxiety attacks when you're around the EMFs? It's because it also, again, it's an invisible stressor, but your cortisol raises. So when your cortisol raises because you have the stress, it raises glucose, spikes it up as well. So we can see those numbers too. But it's usually the cortisol spike and the blood interference that causes the nausea, as well as unexpected anxiety attacks, or you get some like tightening in your throat, that's from the cortisol, which is another response that is going to happen when you're around EMFs, even if you're not feeling it. Like that's the stress. So that's most likely where the nausea comes from people. I just say that, and the bad sleep, we can see that too. But what can we do, right? So there's multiple options here, and I think it depends on your lifestyle as well as the severity of what you're trying to do. What are your end goals? We can start at the most like common, I'm not say common, but like the most well-known are like Faraday cages, right? So Faraday cages, you can get literally boxes that will stop the EMF production, or it keeps it inside, right? So you can get these little bags, you can put your cell phone in them, you can get clothing, any of that stuff. And what that means is that it literally blocks the EMFs. The downfall of that is if you put your phone in a Faraday cage, you can't use it. You can't get a phone call. You can't make phone calls until you take it out. And then you're exposed to EMFs again, right? So they can work in theory, and there are plenty of places I think we're in a lifestyle someone it could fit for them. It does not fit in my lifestyle. I've had them before, but also I used to put it at night, and I'm one of those random people that probably most people say won't happen, but I had a family emergency happen in the middle of the night that if I didn't have my phone with me at that time where it was available to receive a phone call, things would have been really bad. So I know most people, it's like, oh, well, what's going to happen in the middle of the night? Like, I get that. But for me and my experience in life, like I always want to have my phone with me because of that very specific situation where if I had it in a Faraday cage, I would not have received that phone call and things could have been really bad. Or would have been really bad. So that is, you can put they make Faraday cages for Wi-Fi routers, large ones for you to sleep in too. Those are very large investments. Again, this depends on your lifestyle and where your end goals are. But, kind of the purpose here today is to talk about is like the benefits, which we'll just step into here, is like quantum energy and how quantum energy can protect you from any of this negative stuff. And of course, we're talking about with Lila Q today. So Lila Quantum Technology is the company. And it's basically these products that are all going to be initially, we have so many different products, but everything at a base level is charged with this pure quantum energy. So I know I've used that word a few times, quantum energy, and people probably kind of gear away of like, that sounds woo-woo, because as we said before, there's a lot of unethical marketing in the alternative health world, which is something that I'm very proud to be on the opposite side of. I'm very, very into no stretching claims. I want to make sure everything's there, because people in this world that are in the alternative health space, they tend to be very, they're just desperate to feel better, and they'll pay lots of money. They'll pay money they don't have. They'll put things on credit cards, take out second loans to pay for these things because of claims that these companies make, which really bothers me. So there's a lot of quantum. I get that. People are just using that word as a buzzword, and it's not. Like, you have quantum physics, quantum mechanics, quantum biology. What we're mainly going to be talking about is like quantum physics. We're on that level side of things, right? So this isn't some quantum patch that protects you from or stops the EMFs, and the words they use, you can tell, that stuff. So what is quantum energy? How about there? I've kind of gone on a lot of things. Quantum energy, it's basically the energy behind the matter at like a subatomic level. So to visualize that first, before I go further into this, the best way I could say is like, let's say we have a piece of paper, and we have a pencil, and we're writing on that pencil with a pencil, right? And that space that's in between the lead and the space that's in between the paper, let's say that's the quantum angle. It's right below it, right? And it is, it's not a positive energy and it's not a negative energy. It's actually, and this is where the benefits are going to come, it's a neutralizing energy. So it expands outward, but it's neutralizing. So not positive, negative, it's just very neutralizing. So what that means is anything that comes into that space is going to be neutralized. That's harmful waveform patterns. That's EMFs. That's mold. That's any kind of environmental stressor that is in your space will be neutralized. Doesn't mean it makes it not usable, which is why we can use, you can see I use AirPods. I have Apple Watch. I have everything, but I'm not being affected in a negative way by the EMFs. And we can show that hundreds and hundreds and not thousands of times on this. So that's what the benefit of this is, and we have things like necklaces. We wear the necklaces. We have cards. We have blocks. We actually have quantum energy generators. We have clothing. We have so many different products with different frequencies on them as well, so we can add the frequencies. But the main purpose of all of these things, this is what we're talking about today, is like the harmonization. So it harmonizes or neutralizes the harmful effects that EMFs have on the body. Kind of like I mentioned before with the studies of like how we show and can show that EMFs are harmful, we can flip that. And again, we have 65 double-blind placebo-controlled studies on our website, front and center, on the research tab. You can see all this. Where, for example, let's say we put you in a room all by yourself. There's no EMFs. There's nothing in there, right? So let's put you in a big Faraday cage. Let's for say there's no EMFs, right? Okay, we can do your numbers. We can check your HRV. We're checking your cortisol. We check your blood, your live blood analysis. Glucose, we can check it all. We can check your brain wavelengths again, right? And everything's going to be pretty good. It should be. You're right. And you don't have any external stressors, and our body is pretty much always just in response of what's going on. So if you don't have any external stressors, your body can breathe inside. Like, I'm in my natural state. This is cool. So then what we can do is put a Wi-Fi router. Let's say 10 minutes later, we put a Wi-Fi router in that same room with you. Now we redo all those tests, right? Your HRV is dropped. Your calcium channels are overreacting. Your blood shows the stickiness. Cortisol's up. Glucose levels are up. All that stuff, we can show that. Now what we do is we take one of our products. And again, we have a necklace you could wear. We have wrist stuff, like little bracelets, cards. We have lots of different things, water bottles, anything, and any of this stuff would work. So you can just have it with you in your space. Now we put that with you. Let's just say, for example, we took our big quantum block that we have. So it's a quantum energy generator. Let's put that next to you in the room. So wait 5 minutes if you even need it, but we usually do the test 5 minutes later. And then we retest. And what we're going to see over and over all the time, this isn't something where we say, oh, it helps 75%. It helps everyone is what we see. So what we show now is that all of your blood results, all your HRV, everything will go back to pre-EMF exposure while still having all those EMFs surrounding you. So they're still being used, but the harmful effects are being neutralized. And that's where the benefit comes, because you can still utilize, you can still take advantage and use the luxuries or the technologies. Like I said to you before we started this, right? It was like you and I could, at least on my end, I couldn't be having this conversation with you. I live out in the country. I don't have cell service. I rely on Wi-Fi. I rely on all this stuff to have a conversation with you. And I could have everything hardwired. I could do all that stuff, which would cost me so much money, just the logistics of where my office is on my property and everything. But it's much simpler, easier, and effective for me just to have the quantum energy in my space so that I'm not being affected by it.
Okay, fair enough. So, I mean, I guess I should tell my conspiracy theory friends that, you don't need the tinfoil hat anymore. You got something for that, right?
Yeah. Well, we actually, on the other end, we're mentioning all this stuff, but we do have, for people that are extra sensitive, it's a tinfoil hat. We actually have Faraday hats. So, but they're baseball hats, right? So they're hats. We have jackets, we have t-shirts that are all EMF blocking. So same thing. If you put your cell phone in those, it's not going to work. But those are something that, like, hey, if you're extra sensitive, those would work for you. So we do have baseball caps, and I appreciate our products at Lila Quantum compared to and this isn't, I'm not trying to speak down on other companies. It's just a personal preference. It's like, there's lots of options out there for EMF blocking clothing, but at the same time, from the ones I've always seen, they're very attention grabbers. And I personally like to walk places, and I always call it low-key biohacking. Like, I don't want the sign, everyone look at me, look at the weird things I'm doing today, right? Like, I like to just live life regularly and do my healthy stuff without drawing attention to myself. And that's one thing I really enjoy about the Lila Q. Like, the t-shirt looks like a t-shirt. It's got silver lining in it, but it's not going to be, there's some companies, I don't know if you've seen their jackets, the EMF blocking jackets, but they actually zip up across your head so it blocks your whole head. And I mean, that's not the first thing I would choose to go to TSA in, right? Like, because it's gonna actually cause more problems. They're gonna you're bringing more attention and more questions to you as opposed to just wearing what we have. Again, all you really need are the capsules and that. I wear 3 of them. This is a little overdoing. I just do it, but it's just so you can see what people are like. These are the capsules. You really just need one. These are different ones because they have different frequencies, which we can talk about later. But you just need one of those to be doing the EMF blocking. And just to reiterate, every product from Lila Quantum at a base level does what we're just talking about. The difference of the other products is going to be the frequencies that they're infused with as well. But everything you can buy is going to have this EMF protection.
So how close does something have to be to you in order to protect you?
That's a great question. And that also depends on the product in the most part, as far as the strength of it. So like our quantum energy generators, they go out to over a mile, some of them. We have some that do a half a mile. We have some that are just a room, like 600 square feet. Those are our largest ones. So those are awesome. Like if you're in an apartment complex, because then you're also protecting the people around you. And these are really useful for people in apartments because, you know, you and I, right? So we can do as much as we want to protect our space. But if we have neighbors or again, an apartment, I'm just gonna use that because that's as close as you can pretty much get the living quarters with someone else, right? Is like you might be where you're sleeping. Your neighbor might have their Wi-Fi router right there. Like the way the designs are always created, right? It's like the one bedroom is always next to the other neighbor's living room. And usually that's where their TV is. And that's usually where the Wi-Fi router is. So like where you're sleeping is your neighbor's Wi-Fi router location too. So if you have a block or any of our products like that, you're actually protecting yourself from that too. So, I mean, the capsules go about 6 feet out. So they protect your person, like yourself. The capsules, most of our stuff is just for your individual. But if you go larger, like with the blocks, then you're protecting everyone in the house.
So, okay, let's say I got a water bottle or a bracelet and I forget to bring it in the room with me, or I forget to put it on. What's the level of protection from that if you're close to it?
It's about 6 feet. The bracelets and the water bottles are about 6 feet. So most things are going to be 6 feet. Some of our frequency cards are probably about 3 feet. They're smaller. That's why. But everything else is about 6 feet unless you get into our blocks, which again go up to about a mile.
Okay, that sounds good and logical. Well,
in fact, just because you can see it, like these are our cards. I just randomly have these around here just so you can see. But like these are our cards. It's the size of a credit card, right? It can go. You can put this in your pocket. You can have this under a bed. They have like calm and rest easy, all these different frequencies. But you could have this on your bed. You could put this in your wallet and purse, whatever you want to have. And I'm just going to scroll back here just to show you. This is so these are our quantum energy generators, right? So size-wise, this is the basic size, but we have some that are much larger as well. And you can put things under here and charge them with the quantum energy as well. So you can lower the EMF production off of your AirPods, your cell phone, everything like that by putting them under that block for a few minutes as well. You can charge food, you can charge water, you can structure water. We show all this, again, studies and stuff that we have with them. What you can do with these things. It's very cool.
I was just about to ask you a really strange question. And now that I've heard you say that, I realize it's probably not a strange question at all. Suppose I microwave some food and I put it under that generator. What happens?
That's an impressive question. You were the first person. I do these all the time. I just want to say you are the first person to ever ask that question. So I always have to give that because often the times the questions kind of get based. I appreciate that. Wow. I'm going to whole tangent how cool that question is. So I love that you asked that. And we can show that it actually brings the food back to its organic state. So organic. So even if you have non-organic fruit and produce, you can put it under that block and it's going to bring it back to its organic state. So it actually will rebuild it. It restructures. It's really easier, and I'd say more impactful if it is a fruit or a vegetable or food that it's gonna redo everything, but it'll really make a more bigger impact if it's like something with water in it. So fruit, vegetables. If it has water, it's gonna really enhance it significantly. But this is something I can't do, and we don't have like the actual data like, it hasn't been shown third party studied, but we have people who we work with that can see auras, they can see energy fields, they can see that. It's a gift they've been given. And what we can do and have done is they can tell you the difference between a piece of food that has been put under the block and a piece of food that has not put under the block. Over and over again, switch it around. They'll always be able to see the vibration of the food and that it's vibrating differently. So again, I understand that's not hard science data. We can show it though by people that we know that have those abilities, that you can do it all the time, and they'll tell you what things have been put under the block and what haven't, based on how it's vibrating when they can see it at that level.
Okay, so I mean, I guess like a sillier version of it is, okay, I microwave a piece of pizza and I put it under there, like it's going to increase the vibration of it regardless, right? So it's going to restructure as much as it can in there, and it's still going to be ultimately better off for you. And, there's a lot of different directions that you could go with this technology, because let's face it, things are not going back to the way that they were. The more technology you have, the more smart TVs you have in the house, the more Wi-Fi routers and extenders and stuff like that you have in the house, the more you have all these different variations of Bluetooth and wireless technology. I mean, pretty soon, everything is going to be so advanced that there's going to be nothing that you can do about it, right? So how soon do you see this technology evolving to where it's even in like the paint that you use to paint your house with and stuff like that?
That's another cool question. I love the way that goes, because we have people that are focused on that. So we work with a guy. His name is Brian Johnson, not the LA Brian Johnson anti-aging guy. This gentleman, Brian Johnson, I've actually known this guy on the other side for like 15 years, but he builds, he's a home builder. He's a general contractor, home builder, and he builds the most magnificent, amazing homes, and they are VOC free. They are EMF blocking, no EMFs in the house. He does every little thing you could imagine to have a healthier home. Circadian adjusting lights throughout the day, grounding on the floor. And he actually enhances and he uses quantum energy in the homes. So you can do this multiple ways. One is, because especially with paint that has any form of metal, you can charge it with a block and then you're enhancing it that way. That would be the simple answer to that. But he integrates the Lila quantum technologies into the homes he builds. And that goes through putting them in the frame. So like the metal and the frames, when they're building the house, these all get charged by quantum energy. With like one of our big blocks. The one I showed you, like our small size, we have much larger, and we can make custom size or much bigger. But he puts everything. He can put like the EMF blocking paint and stuff under there, and it just enhances it. But I mean, at this point, there really isn't a limit, and we're just expanding out more and more on like the uses of quantum energy. Now, we didn't invent quantum energy. Quantum energy has been around since the time of existence, right? We have just found a way to concentrate it into a very small level and then be able to utilize it so people are using it, right? So that's just to make clear, it's not something we invented. But what we're seeing is we've been around since like 2019, and we started with like, okay, EMF stuff, that's cool. But like when I use the word earlier, like disruptive waveform patterns, right? So disruptive waveform patterns. Anything that is disrupting that we can't see, it's going to be neutralized. So again, you're talking about the pizza. Let's put the pizza under there. It gets attacked by the radiation, everything, it heats it up. I immediately put that under the block, leave it there for 2 minutes, and it's going to basically reassemble how it should be in a beneficial way. It's going to reverse any damage that occurred with that. Other things we're seeing with this, which are really cool. We have a group on Telegram. There's about 8,000 people, and it's just users for our products, right? And we're always trying to figure out, because we didn't create this stuff with the exact idea of like, it's going to fix this, we're making it to fix this, and this. We weren't aware of everything it was going to do. And we're very aware of that now, because people are constantly finding new ways to benefit from exposing to quantum energy, things that we're seeing through studies. And we start these studies after a bunch of people like in the Telegram group are like, hey, we saw this happen, and has anyone else seen this happen? And we'd go and like, okay, there's something to this. So for example, we can show, and this is really wild, but this is one of our newer studies that we did at the beginning of last year, was that we can show that when you put your food under the block, right? So for, let's just say 5 minutes, you will experience it's a 92% reduction in the stress that food would have on your body. So like sugar, gluten, lactose, all this stuff is going to be suppressed by 92%. I was the one that actually started this movement of questioning how we can use that stuff by when the lead scientist was talking to me about it, right? He's like, yeah, it basically neutralizes anything that's bad for you. And I was like, okay, well, anything that's bad for you? He's like, everything, because it just neutralizes everything. I was like, okay, so what if I'm like allergic to food, right? Like, can I benefit from that? And he's like, yeah, you should. So I am severely allergic to crab, honey, and avocado, shellfish, seafood. I'm not fatally allergic, but if I eat it, I have a really bad 8 hours. So I tried this by I took some crab, and I put it under the block and I ate it and I had no problem. And I was like, okay, well, I also understand the power of placebo, right? So this isn't hard science, but I did that and I was like, well, I'm not feeling the reaction. I feel it instantly. So later what I did is I had my wife do it and I was like, don't tell me if you put it under the block or not and just give it to me. And then I could try it and I got a bad reaction because I knew she didn't put it under the block, right? So after that, we knew that. I was like, okay. And then so we did that just a few times, playing around, put it under the block or don't put it under the block. Don't tell me I'm going to eat it. And when she put it under the block, I didn't have a reaction. And we did this, actually ended up doing this Well, we did this method in front of like 1,000 people at the biohacking conference. So in front of everyone, we took a bunch of crab that I was allergic to. We took a derma roller and we derma rollered my inner forearm and we put the crab meat on it. It just blew up. It looked like I had 100 bee stings. It hurt so bad. Everything was just really bad, like a histamine response all over my forearm. So then we took that crab meat, put it under the block. We talked to the audience for a little bit. And then we did my other arm. I think it was 5 or 6 minutes later, after being in the block, and there was no response ever, like at all. It was so cool to see that. And then so everyone, because I could show people I ate it, but I could be lying, right? And I'm not trying to do that. And I'm basing on people trusting me. It's like, okay, I ate this and now there's no response. But we wanted to show everyone so they could come up on stage. Yeah. Well, I can, as long as it's under the block. And I do this all the time now. I've been doing this for 6 years with it. But it's really cool to see that. And, we did this in front of everyone that could come up to the stage and see the difference on my arms. And that's just one study. And then, so we ended up doing is actually, that wasn't a study. That was just an experiment, right? But what we ended up turning that into a study where we went to Austria and they did this with like, I don't know, it was like 60 people or something where they did the same thing. And I don't know the exact science behind it, so I don't want to misspeak, but supposedly if you eat something and you have an allergy response, there's a protein that shows up in your urine that says, hey, that was not good for you. So that's how they were able to analyze this, was it was double-blind placebo-controlled studies with food that people had allergies to. And then they could test it by showing that there was a 92% reduction in that protein after it had been charged in the block. And that's just one thing, because other people started showing like, oh, we're super allergic to lemon juice or something, right? And then they could put it on the block and they could consume lemon juice. So if you have a fatal response, honestly, it's not the first thing I would try. I wouldn't do that because that's a different level. But if you have like a severe issue, just be mindful of it. But that's just one thing we showed, right? And then there's all these different things with brain scans that we can show. We took a cell phone. We did this in Austria. We took a 256 channel EEG brain scanner, right? And we put the newest iPhone up to someone for about 30 minutes right here. We could show all the brain scans, everything it did. And then we brought one of our devices into the room and instantaneously, so this was in seconds, basically even seconds, we saw that the gamma decreased by like 77%, the beta wavelengths decreased by 83%, and we saw a 1300% increase in alpha, which is where you want to be, all while the phone is still there, right? So we didn't stop the phone. We didn't, again, this is our newest study we did with the brain scans. The 256 channel is the most advanced brainwave scanning on Earth. They don't even have them in the United States due to the cost, but it's pretty cool to see that, like that you're the phone, everything, bring the product in, everything instantly goes down while you're still on the phone. So again, it shows that we can utilize all these luxuries and technologies without having to be afraid of them and to block them out of our life. And as I mentioned before, one of the cool things is the founder, Philip, he was the global vice president of T-Mobile. So he's been on both sides of the pendulum. He was on that side of technology, EMFs, all of that, and then came over to this side. So he has a different understanding of like, how do we work with this stuff synergistically? Because on the same time, they're not out there to destroy us. We're customers to T-Mobile. We're customers to Verizon. They're not wanting us to get sick. They're not out there like writing on a whiteboard, like how do we create, EMFs to damage the earth and stuff. They have a company and they have their product, right? And another thing, this isn't really what we're talking about, but I want to make sure because a lot of people don't understand this. There's 5G, there's 4G and all that, right? The reason 5G, the 5 just doesn't mean stronger. It's just new generation. So you have 5th generation, 4G is 4th generation, right? So it's just moving up. The thing about 5G that's the biggest concern is it's actually weaker than 4G. So you have to have a more dense population of these towers and devices than you would if it was just the 4G. So the 4G, they could spread these out further. 5G, they have to put them in closer. So that's actually the concern is, okay, now you've got 6 microwaves right next to you as opposed to just 2 before. So they have to make them, they're more like condensed in closer places because they don't have as much reach. They can't go through concrete as well. So you just see it's more higher concentration of these 5G towers than we did the comparison of 4G towers. So that's one thing to think about.
And think about it, I will. Then here's another thing that I guess I would ask, it's probably another strange question, probably out of context, but what about the impact of chemicals like pesticides on produce or fluoride in the water? Does the technology restructure those particles?
So there's some nuance to that. And I love those questions because these are the things I really like to talk about differently. So let's start with, water is one of my biggest passions. I love water, like in terms of the nuances and like real revitalized and structured water, right? So what we can show, the Emoto Institute is, most people know Dr. Emoto. He's the person who did like the love and all the positive words on water and the negative words on more water. And then they froze them and they look them under a microscope, under a petri dish and see the difference, right? So with happy water, all that happy words, it came out beautiful, had, looked like snowflakes, and the negative words looked all like cracked mirrors and stuff. And if you understand and dig into water, that makes perfect sense. Like water is a mirror. Like most people look at water as just, it's a hydration device for us, right? Like that's how we get hydrated. And actually water does not hydrate us at all. It's what's in the water that hydrates us, right? So water is a bridge of communication. And because this shows, if that's over someone's head, reverse osmosis water strips everything of water, everything out of the water. You'll still become dehydrated if you drink that because there's no longer anything in there. There's nothing in there. It doesn't have minerals. It doesn't have anything, electrolytes in there. So the water just passes through and brings what it has, right? So most people just view our water as like, oh, I just drink it, I'm hydrated. Well, what kind of water you drink matters and what's in it matters. So structured water, they can show with like Victor Schauberger. He did some studies where you can see, so think like stream water, like when the water is going through, which is what the Lila Quantum products are doing, is they're bringing them back to that biomimicry of nature. So while it's not going to remove the fluoride, it's not going to remove the stuff. What it does do, we can see when you have revitalized structured water can be like a living conscious. That's how I believe it. I strongly believe and feel water is a living conscious. So it actually has the knowledge and it's smart. So when you have these negative things, it actually encapsulates them. So I'll explain how you can do your own study with this in a minute and just kind of experiment and show with it. But while the fluoride is still present in the water again has this, I would say, smart or awareness that it encapsulates that fluoride and neutralizes it. So your cells are not going to absorb it, but you will urinate them out. This is with everything. So I know you can't do this with our products because we don't have a product that does this, but if you can find like a structured water device, and let's say you're at your house and people smell chlorine in the water, right? The shower water, if you're using municipal water, it usually has high chlorine, and often people can smell it. If you can, and there are other technologies that you can structure that water before it comes out of that head, you're not going to smell the chlorine. The chlorine is there. The chlorine is still there, but you're not going to smell it. And that's the important thing, right? So that I'm just bringing that up in terms of neutralization of it. Even though it's still there, it's neutralizing. Kind of like how the quantum energy, the EMFs are still there, but it's neutralizing them. So that's what the water, in terms of it doesn't remove, but it's also going to just suppress and protect your body from it. And I'm so sorry. You asked something before I got excited about the water. What was the other thing you were asking about? Was it food or the?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Like produce, pesticides and produce.
Oh, the pesticides and chemicals. Yeah. So again, we do not have any studies yet, but we can show that it is going to neutralize them if you put that fruit under the block like that way. So your capsule technically could do it if you had it next to it for like an hour, but if you have a block, you can do it in a few minutes. And it will neutralize it. We don't have any studies with the actual chemicals though. And on the same end of that, that's why people look at organic and they think organic's good, and it's an unfortunate world we're living in now with the FDA and what's allowed to be perceived as organic. And not, because they may not be sprayed from the outside, but it can still be organic and have all the chemicals in the soil, and you're still consuming all that, and that's an unfortunate part for consumers who are actively trying to live and make healthier decisions. And they go buy something that's organic, especially in California, where the entire soil is saturated with glyphosate. There's no skipping it unless you go biodynamic organic style, but it's an unfortunate thing with that, where you produce and all that. I personally ozonate all my produce as it comes through the house as well. That's another thing. It's another step. You can buy one of those like $80 ozonators on Amazon or something. That'd be sufficient to ozonate all your produce as well. Well worth it.
Okay. That's fantastic insights there. Tell me about the different frequencies, because you mentioned you were wearing like 3 different capsules and one's calm and stuff like that. So tell us the differences between those. What would you use them for? Can you break down, like, let's say a pair of Leela quantum underwear versus a hat versus the card and all that?
Yeah. So if I go off on a tangent and forget anything, please come back and remind me. So this is actually how I got into quantum energy as well, because of the frequencies, and I wanted to debunk them. And this was back in 2015, where I found these things that were quantum energy, this and that. And I was like, that's fake. There's no way quantum is just a scam taking advantage of people. So what I did back then was I was a monotonous eater. Back then I was carnivore, and I could eat the same thing every day. And what I did was I went and got a blood test. So I got the SpectraCell micronutrient test, and these are expensive. They're like, back then they were like $600. And I get a baseline of all my micronutrients. And then I started to wear this necklace, and they told me to wait 40 days. So I waited 40 days, and this necklace I was wearing was a quantum charged necklace with frequencies of all the micronutrients that our body used. So 40 days, I'm sorry, the first time I got my baseline, I was deficient in quite a few nutrients. And when I went, after the 40 days of wearing this necklace, I went back and got a test, and everything was optimal. And on the other end of it, nothing was overly. Everything was perfectly in range at the functional medicine perspective. And so I waited another 40 days, got the same test. Everything was awesome. Got it another 40 days. Everything was awesome. Then I took the necklace off, and I waited 40 days, and I got the test back, and all the numbers had dropped back down to how they were previously. And again, it's not a, Harvard study clinical thing I did, but it was enough for me to be like, okay, there's something to this. And this is where the frequencies matter, because everything, if you understand this, at least, everything is vibration and frequency. And if you can understand that, things can make more sense just with everything in life, right? So vitamin C, we see it as a physical substance, but once it hits in our body, it's a communication. So it becomes a vibration and frequency that our body utilizes. It's the same thing with the sun, right? The sun has certain wavelengths, vibrations, has frequencies that our body utilizes with hormones. So the 2017 Nobel Prize in Biology, might have been 2016 or 2017 biology or Nobel Prize in Biology was awarded to the research on the frequencies that come from the sun and our circadian rhythm, right, to harmonize all of our hormones. So that's just another example. I'm going on a tangent, but to show the like frequencies are legitimate in our body, how they respond to it, right? So what happens is with those certain frequencies, when they go through our eyes, then they, especially let's say UV, right? So our UVA, UVB go through our eyes, and then it also tells our body, okay, start to produce vitamin D. So it's all communication. Like it's not a substance you eat, right? You can, of course, vitamin D, take it as a supplement, right? But just kind of, I know that's a tangent, but I'm trying to explain it so people understand that like frequencies are really there, and even though we don't see them. Same thing with vitamin C. Same thing with all these vitamins that we can have are on a frequency level. So we infuse all of our products with different frequencies. And what it does is it puts them in the space available. So it makes them passive. It doesn't mean it's going to force this vitamin C on you. It's not going to force any of these micronutrients. Our bodies are really aware, so it allows them to be accessible for them to grab. To reiterate with my thing before, is what's really cool is you won't overdose. Your body knows what it needs, right? So when I did all those studies, I was never on high levels. Everything was just optimal. So it was kind of like my body took what it needed when the frequencies were available and in my space. And it didn't force anything in me. So I didn't have any high levels of something. So it balances everything out. Our frequencies are pretty cool. We have probably like 45 different frequencies, whether it's from the micronutrients frequencies with different types of other, like, so the Heal 360 capsule is our most popular product by far. It has like 120 different types of frequencies involved with it. It could be like glutathione. It's almost like a big multivitamin, as well as other things it has in it. Then we have things like calm and rest to help you sleep. We have abundance. We have prosperity. We have gratitude. We have heart opening chakras. We have self-love. We have primal source, which is a very beautiful one. We have pineal gland opening frequencies. Just so many different types to go with that. And we have some that help people with any type of, protein shedding from the vaccine. We have frequencies to help people with that, whether you're around people that were vaccinated or you were, those frequencies will help you and then protect you from people around. And that's just a really cool thing is like the difference. And like you were talking about sort of Lila Quantum underwear, all of our actual clothing is charged with that Heal 360, the Heal 360 frequency, as well as those are EMF blocking. So like the underwear has a spot, which again, we can also show on a side note with the underwear is a significant increase in sperm production by wearing our underwear as opposed to not. And at the end of the day, it's probably just being, all these things are showing like what it does to our body is just because it's putting you in your natural state. It's putting you back into a parasympathetic where your body can be in its natural state and do what it's supposed to do naturally. So it's not like the quantum energy so much as like giving you this. It's a big bubble wrap of protection for yourself. So when we can show things like a 29% increase in ATP production, it's not so much that quantum energy is like boosting that, right? It's actually just like, hey, this is what you're supposed to be able to do naturally without the EMFs barking at you, with all this stuff. Like that's what you're supposed to be able to do. We can show a 200% increase in wound healing. And again, it's not so much the energy that's creating it. It's just saying, hey, your mitochondria can focus all day on wound healing now. It doesn't have to, budget its percentage of usage on the EMF protection and the mold and everything. Like it's just, it focuses on what it's supposed to do. So I also want to reiterate that. It's like when you see the increase in these things, it's also just because it's like, it's not the one guiding it. It's just giving you like, hey, here's a safe space to be who you're supposed to be. And that's what the increases come about. We see is from that. So it's the effects of EMFs. If you're around a Salva Tower, you're going to heal less. And that's one concern about hospitals. They're the hospital in Marin. Well, I lived in Marin, right? So we're just north of San Francisco. And they built this hospital. It's Marin General. And what they did is it's all like hardwired. So there's no Wi-Fi routers. In a normal hospital, there are Wi-Fi routers over every door, over every double doors, every patient door, you have Wi-Fi routers. And it's not for us. It's not for us to have the luxury to be able to talk. It's so that the nurses and doctors always, no matter what, have communication availability to the engineers in case there's a pipe burst or some danger. They have everywhere they're at. They can always just call the engineer for instant. But what's that doing to you is you're trying to heal in a hospital. You have fluorescent lighting, which we talked about earlier, and you have EMFs everywhere. Like, you don't heal. You can't heal as how you normally could when your body now, you're in the hospital on a bed, and it's like, well, I got to protect you from the EMFs while still trying to heal the suture or whatever you have going on. So that's just another way to look at it too. And I'm sorry, I went on a tangent again. What else? I'm sure there are some things that I skipped on.
Well, you answered the question. Okay. This is fantastic information. Todd, I want to thank you for being on the Boundless Authenticity podcast. I think we're going to have to do this again as I think of more questions, because they're going to be big ones, and have a little bit of a deeper dive into things so you can actually educate people on more of the studies and whatnot. But the takeaway from this episode is the good news. You can sleep next to your phone again. So you can get 10% off at leelaq.com, LEELAQ.com, when you use the code Boundless at checkout. Todd, thanks again for being on Boundless Authenticity.
Thanks so much for having me.
You're listening to the Boundless Authenticity podcast, where we discuss everything related to the evolution of human consciousness.
At the very least, people need to understand that the United States builds bunkers, which are basically cities underground, every 3 months.
Basically, when you dream, you tap into your subconscious. It is your nocturnal intuition, your creativity and imagination unchained from conscious reason, ego and logic.
They're biologically alive, but they have no soul. They have AI consciousness. They can alter your conscious of the brain to get the brain.
We live in a multidimensional reality. Whether it comes through esoteric information in the spiritual realms, or the UFO people, experiencers, or mainstream through quantum physics and through mainstream science now realizing that parallel dimensions probably exist.
We're all spiritual beings. We're all having these human experiences. We've heard that phrase over and over and over. But what does that really mean? All the big questions of life, we have these answers inside of our soul.
We're ultimately studying the nature of what it is to be human, good and evil, our psychology, how we think, and our health. That's why I love Bruce Lee's great quote, all knowledge is ultimately self-knowledge.
The Boundless Authenticity podcast.